Hello, and welcome to When the Sun Sets East, Episode 2, brought to you by the Music Arc and the Arc of E Network. My name is Noah.
And my name is Gavin.
And we're the Blanchard Brothers, and we are finally back. Finally. This was supposed to happen a little earlier. Apologies all around. But, finally, we're here to talk about alopecia.
Yeah, we were just too busy celebrating freedom, man.
Somebody went a little too hard. As I mentioned, I don't know if you listened to the movie arc or the 4-color arc this week, but me and Matt talked a little bit of shit about you.
Why's that?
Oh, just for getting, so red on the 4th.
Yeah.
And, not being able to make it down to record.
Well,
but anyways,
these colors don't run, brother. And I'm just showing my patriotic spirit.
Oh, God.
You
Okay.
can check out my Speedo and everything on my Instagram. It was dope.
Don't go look at that, people. I do not recommend it. But luckily, in the meantime, a lot of stuff has happened since the launch of the series. And as you probably have already seen, which I definitely know you have because it's doing quite well. It's up over 200 downloads. But Untethered Layers, formerly a segment of this show, is now its own companion podcast, if you will. And given that we ran a little late, the idea going forward is we will drop 2 episodes every Wednesday at midnight. You'll get us lagging a little bit behind, and you'll get the setup for the next album that we're going to cover, but you'll get the, super fan perspective from Dawood and Rachel. So you're hearing this, and you can also go immediately to your feed and listen to their episode on Eskimo Snow. And then next Wednesday, you'll get our thoughts on Eskimo Snow. See if Gavin is still in the game to finish this up.
Yeah, I'm still here.
You'll get their thoughts on Moms, etc. So hopefully that'll work going forward. You get 2 podcasts for the price of nothing because we don't charge anything here.
And we're gonna put ours out first, right?
What do you mean?
Well, because
You're not listening to anything I just said.
Well, no, because they're going to talk about what's the next one?
Eskimo Snow.
Okay, yeah. So like, if we post ours first and we're like, yeah, interested to see what Eskimo Snow has in store, and then they're talking about Eskimo Snow, like, after us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what ours is going to go up first.
But they're ahead of us chronologically in the albums because we didn't record this to go up on Wednesday.
Yeah, but like, it would lead us to be like, oh, hey, can't wait to see what they're going to, interesting to hear what they have to say about Eskimo Snow. We'll be back.
Yeah.
And then that way.
And then hopefully you'll listen to them in the meantime.
Oh, no, I listened to them already. Like, I listened to the one they recorded about alopecia.
Oh, God. Please don't say it like that for the rest of the episode.
It's just because every time I hear that, I think of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
I know. I actually was listening back to an earlier music arc where you made the exact same reference.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mert and Aloysius will have to sign X's. Only 4 of us can write.
I don't know why Aloysius has anything to do with alopecia.
Aloysius, alopecia.
I know I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. Anyways, part of the feedback was Yoni himself listened to the episode. Hopefully, you're enjoying a little bit better production on my end. He gave me some pointers. Hopefully, this is a little bit better listen for people in cars, not listening in headphones. Let me know. thearkofe@gmail.com. Trying to improve all the time, but hopefully you're enjoying some compression, some equalization, and a little bit of de-essing as well.
This episode brought to you by The Equalizer 2, Denzel Washington's first sequel, in theaters July 42nd.
July something.
Yeah.
Okay, sure thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Equalizer, not a sponsor of the show. Again, we have no sponsors. If you want to become a sponsor, let us know.
We got a potential one with that film festival coming up.
Okay, so other than the audio quality, a couple other things, because I don't know if we've talked about this off mic. One, we're going to try and keep them around an hour going forward, which works out perfectly now that Untethered Layers is its own thing. Mm-hmm. We can each go more deep divey, but we'll, this will be, again, your perspective, trying to get you into them. That's what's driving our kind of side of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So, about an hour or so. And then we've been accused, and I want to see how you feel about this, by Yoni's sister, Becky, and a few other people, Yoni's Instagram followers, of being a little mansplainy about why.
What does that mean?
It basically means that you talk in a holier than thou sort of position. There's a certain amount of arrogance to it, and as if you're talking down to people.
Oh, okay.
Normally, mansplaining, of course, comes from like a man explaining something to a woman, but being extremely like derogatory or
like hold on, sweetheart, I'm
just condescending about it. Yes.
Yeah.
So we will try and avoid that in the future. Apologies. I don't feel like we were intentionally being like condescending or anything.
Oh.
So I'll try and steer away from that, and we'll keep it
now I
more
can just do
just
it as a
Gavin's
joke.
thoughts.
Yeah.
And you can direct all your hate towards him.
Yeah.
You can be the mansplainer, I guess.
I'll be the hero
stuff
of this
you've never
podcast
heard
needs, but
until
not the
this
one it
point.
deserves right now.
What's that?
The hero of this podcast needs, but not the one it deserves right now, because I can take it. Because I'm the white knight. No, dark knight. No, I don't know.
You're the red knight at the moment.
Yeah.
Burnt to a crisp. Okay.
Burnt to a crisp.
So, without further ado, we should go ahead and let's get your overall thoughts at the top, and then we'll jump into the track by track. We'll just, let's have a nice, fun podcast. What'd you think?
Well, speaking as a 30-year-old man that enjoys all kind of music, not trying to say anything to hurt anyone's feelings. That's a joke. The whole man's, it's funny because it's like I'm nothing. Like I live, in a tiny apartment in a kind of somewhat shitty city in the South, and it's like, holier than thou? Really? No, I couldn't be holier than anyone. Speaking of holy, I just finished Wild Wild Country.
Good for
We
you.
should talk about it.
That's a great topic for the TV arc.
Perfect.
Sure thing.
Yeah. This is, I think this one, it's like everyone says, everything I've read, everything I've heard, like I said, I listened to Untethered Layers. Is that the right name?
Yes.
Yeah. This is the one I would tell people to go listen to. I don't want to say it's the most user friendly, but like it feels like.
Well, is it more user friendly than Elephant Eyelash?
Yo, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Just the first two tracks, I'm like, this to me, I mean, not to like throw shade on Elephant Eyelash, but the first two tracks for me, and I'm like, dude, I'm on board. Like, this is, I don't really care where this goes, what kind of dark corridors we find ourselves wandering around, but like, I can get on board for this. And I've thrown it on like 2 or 3 times, just having it on. And like, I can kind of tell when it's an Alopecia song that comes up randomly as opposed to an Elephant Eyelash. Cause like I haven't downloaded all of them. I'm doing it one by one.
Mm-hmm.
So that when they randomly come up in like my shuffle, I can be like, which one's this off of? Just to kind of like quiz myself. So I'm a little bit more astute
when
it comes to
brushing up. That's
where
good.
stuff lands.
All right. So you dug it
for
the most part.
I love this one.
More so than Elephant Eyelash.
Yes, definitely so.
Well, let's get right into it, I suppose, with the Vowels Part 2. There is no Vowels Part 1 as of yet.
I'm not a ladies' man, I'm a landmine, filming my own fake death. Under an 88 Cavalier I go. Bye, nothing but the rear bumper's blown. But I was born for this flight, United 955 on the 5th of July. Back to SFOI, I joined the dark side in a thin disguise. I was on consumer grade video at night.
Like you said, immediately on board.
Oh yeah.
Arguably the best opener across any of the albums, but you might feel differently when you get to Eskimo Snow, and you may definitely feel differently when you get to Mohlin. Okay?
Yeah,
so,
but that's all I've been hearing is like how this is like the dopest thing, and like especially this opener. So I'm kind of like wanting it not to be, so I can listen to other ones and be like, nah, man, it's these.
Well,
but so far it's pretty dope.
As we discussed when I listed them on sophomore albums, because I was going off the concept of it's the second full band album.
Yeah.
So put them on that list. And I mentioned at the time, this is part of what got my buddy Evan Tuhig into them. Hopefully he'll guest at some point. You can get his thoughts. He's kind of a newcomer to why. I basically said everybody pretty much universally loves the first track that I've played this for. Good Friday is basically the make or break. And if you're into it by that point, then I feel like by the fourth track, The Hollows, which we'll get to, you're like completely sold. It's going to be one of your favorite albums.
Yeah.
But as you heard on Untethered Layers, they feel like Good Friday is the quintessential Y song. And I totally agree because, again, I feel like that's the barrier. Basically, if you're down for that one, you get what they're all about. But if not, I honestly feel like The Vowels Part 2 is one of the most palatable. And I think they mentioned, like looking at the Spotify rankings, I think Vowels Part 2 is very close to the top.
Yeah, I think so.
Because it's just immediately like that hook just hits you. And it's, oh God, fantastic opener. They've said plenty about it.
I mean, just listening to them and then talking about it now, just the difference in the music itself as you're getting into it. It's just so much. I don't know. I like that because they also mentioned how, like, imagine you listened to Elephant Eyelash and it was your shit. It was like your favorite album, and then you hear this one and you're like, oh, like it's just such. And man, I can see some similarities, but I can also see like a change. And I always feel like people want the same thing over and over, and I can always appreciate bands who I don't like it when bands try to go out of their way to be different, but I can appreciate
when it's organic,
anything
basically.
that's like an organic shift in just music and like what you're into, how you're feeling when you're in the recording studio from session to session.
And I feel like this is maybe a little more how I sold them to you out of the gate. Like you're hearing more of what I described as like indie hip hop essentially.
Yeah.
And I feel like that carries through way more so in this album to the point where that's what people began to expect from them. And when we get to Eskimo Snow, which of course Dell and Rachel mentioned, was written/recorded almost at the same time as Alopecia.
Yeah.
It's almost a double album essentially, but completely different vibe and way more of an indie rock album.
Okay.
So be interested to see how you feel about the transition when we get to there. But speaking of transitions,
you sold this to me as like,
you just totally fucked up my segue.
all right, go ahead. What do
No,
you
go
got?
ahead.
No,
It's ruined now.
Okay.
You ruined it.
What I'm saying, you ruined it. You sold this to me as like, oh, dude, they were in Bellflower, so you'll like it. And I was like, okay. And I went back and rewatched it, and you told me the other day when I got all burnt up that there were 2 songs in it, and I could only remember one, but you said there's listed as like
There's
2.
4 listed on like the IMDb soundtrack,
Yeah,
which again
okay.
is all up to users putting it on there.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually like watch. I don't think I've ever watched for the music credits at the very end.
No.
But
There's just too much
you
going
kind
on.
of still gave me a decent segue.
Okay.
Speaking of good transitions, you already heard about the amazingness of the transition from Vowels Part 2 to Good Friday.
Yes.
I won't play it for you again here, but we get into Good Friday, which is the very first Y track I ever heard, because it is the first song used in Bellflower. The first song used of theirs, rather. There's a lot of other music on the soundtrack. Pre-Twin Peaks, The Return, Chromatics. You got some Likey Lee on there. Jonathan Keevil. It's a good soundtrack, people. Go check it out. I think people have basically put it together on Spotify. You can find different Bellflower podcast or playlist, not podcast.
Yeah.
There should be a Bellflower podcast.
There should be. And speaking again of transitions, we can transition into our lauded segment, Where in the World are Chuck Hank and the San Diego Twins?
Yeah, it really needs its own theme song.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll work on that. Where in the World is Chuck Hank and the San Diego Twins? We still don't know. No updates since the last episode. And that's been Where in the World is Chuck Hank and the San Diego Twins. Thanks for checking in with us.
But you wanna feel how it feels. But you wanna know it didn't hurt me. But you wanna hear about the deal they're making.
Okay, so Good Friday is the first tune I ever hear, and this is what inspired me. Like the second I walked out of the theater, other than being blown away by the movie, I was like, I gotta hear the rest of that song, because it literally gets cut off in the scene where it's used.
If you grew up with white boys who only look at black and Puerto Rican porno cause they want something that their dad don't got, then you know where you're at. Mortaring your ear holes shut in a rush with wet coke in a Starbucks bathroom with the door closed on booze. I'm left in residue and confused like the first time you used soft water. Down on my luck, caught unaware like Houdini when the last fist struck. Sinking in, laughing at something sunken in I am. If I'm sinking in, laughing at something sunken in I am. If I'm sinking in, laughing at something sunken in I am.
And I so want to go down the rabbit hole of talking about Bellflower right now, but maybe we'll say, if you guys want to hear that, we can maybe do that over on the movie arc, a little bit more long form. If people are interested, let us know. Again, thearkofe@gmail.com, or comment on this post on Instagram, etc.
Yeah, because it's the only Cult Wolf movie you're going to get for a while.
Most likely, unless Canary just all of a sudden comes out like tomorrow.
If it usurps Chuck Hank in the lineup of like who's going to be released, I'm going to be upset.
I will be upset, but as long as we know we're getting Chuck Hank, it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to hear a more long-form discussion, but I did manage to ask Yoni on Instagram Live, which, by the way, that was awesome. He and Becky were road tripping back from the West Coast to Cincinnati, and pretty much every day they would Instagram Live for like a couple hours total, broken up across the day, do basically an AMA, etc. That's where they first listened to episode 1, and we got some feedback. That was awesome. And those were just a ton of fun. So I did manage to ask him in the midst of that what he thought of Bellflower. As far as I know, he has still never seen Bellflower to this point. So I guess this is a clarion call to not only all of the listeners here and all the Y fans who may not even be aware of the movie, but also Yoni, go watch it. It's free streaming on Prime right now.
Yep.
If anybody has Prime, you can also find it very easily on the internet, or go buy it on Amazon because you'll want to rewatch it.
Or DM somebody; they could give you their login info. Totally got it.
Or
if you don't
buy
have
it from
Prime.
Coat Wolf directly from their website so they can make more movies. That would be awesome. But I'll be very, very brief. Basically, 2 friends who spend all of their spare time preparing for the apocalypse. One of them meets a girl, and the apocalypse doesn't quite come, but
The apocalypse comes.
an
It's just not
emotional
the one you think it
apocalypse
is.
comes. Yes. I won't say anything more than that. Go watch the trailer if you've never seen it. It will
looks like
definitely
nothing you've
make
ever
you
seen.
want to watch it. Yes. It is amazing. We won't say any more here other than go watch Bellflower. You can also listen out for the next track that we'll be discussing, These Few Presidents, in the party sequence about a third of the way through the movie. Okay, so before I get into talking about that, I totally cut you off. Anything you wanted to say about Good Friday in particular? Given that it is, again, a fan favorite and a lot of people's overall favorite across all of the albums, and kind of, like we said, the quintessential Y song.
Yeah, I mean, it's the namesake for this podcast. So
It is, and with good reason, yes.
And as it stands now, I would go ahead and say if I never listened to another one of their albums or like another song by them, it would probably be my favorite.
Okay.
But I do still have a lot to go.
So we've already hit your favorite on the album.
Essentially, yeah.
For the moment. I'll go ahead and say from the top, for me, this is one of those where like my favorite track can vary on a given day.
Yeah.
Just based on, which listen I happen to be on. Mm-hmm. But I, of course, absolutely love Good Friday. So I don't think we don't need to beat a dead horse. So speaking of horses, we'll get there later. Moving right along. These Few Presidents.
At your house, the smell of our still living human bodies in oven gas. You pray to nothing out loud. 2 first names and an ampersand embroidered proudly on a kitchen towel. You're a beautiful and violent word with the skinny neck of a Chinese bird in a fading ancient painting. And if you're in heaven waiting, you made it there fighting the tightest kite string in a bad storm with lightning. And now these few presidents frowning in my pocket can persuade no God to let me let you talk. Oh, these few presidents frowning in my pocket can persuade no God to let me let you off.
Thoughts?
This is kind of where I was like, all right, I can appreciate the nuances of the music itself. Like
I
I've
love
listened for
the way
more. I've listened to this
the
for more.
percussion kicks in.
Yeah,
on
the
this one.
percussion, the drum. I've listened to that more. Like that's what I guess if you want to go ahead and get it, like I was gonna say this for my final thoughts, but like that's what I noticed more on this, more than like the dope lyrics, is the music. And that's what I was saying earlier. Like I can appreciate anybody's transformation, their move from like a specific sound to a different one when it's organic and have
Because it feels like a progression from Elephant Eyelash. It doesn't feel like, oh my God, they're doing something like completely off the wall different. But
yeah.
yeah.
It's like it's not until you get to Pet Sounds that the Beach Boys are trying to change things up. But it's like every Frankie Valli record, every Beach Boys record, and for all intents and purposes, every Cash record until the 60s, like it's all kind of the same. There's not a big innovation in it. And I don't know where it'd be interesting to chart what you think are some of the pioneers and like not maybe essentially, but like just changing the sound from record to record, whether you think it's personal or like a choice that they made, or if it's something that just kind of happened organically. Because there's a few bands, one we won't talk about anymore, that like I can always appreciate that like their music always changed and people were always like, oh, I want the old thing. It's like, nah, man, you have to be like down with the new stuff, because if the new stuff wasn't good, then yeah, I want the old stuff. But every like AFI, My Chemical Romance, all my favorite bands, why with from again, it's only 2 albums, but I'm pretty sure they'll be, from what you have said. When I say you guys, I mean you and Rachel and Dawood. Yeah, like there's going to be changes coming soon. So I'm trying to limit I don't want to go listen to everything, because it's going to be too much for me to try to remember to talk about.
Yeah,
I want to experience these one by one and get into them to be able to have like, okay, this is a departure from this. This is what I like about the new one. This is how I can relate it to the old one, and rate it at the end, I guess. But this track, more than anything, like you said with the percussions, I felt was like, hey, this is kind of me being like, all right, you know what? I already kind of knew it was going to be different, but I'm totally digging this. And whether I can understand or pontificate on the lyrics, doesn't matter. The music's dope. And that's the main thing you got to worry about. As long as the music's dope, doesn't really matter what you're saying.
I'll give a shout out to a good friend of the show, Mr. Tim Niles, one of my best friends in the world. He finally gave Alopecia a listen himself, and he had many of the same thoughts. And as much as he really dug the music side of it, he was a drum major in college himself, so of course he dug just the vibe of the music. But he didn't necessarily vibe with it lyrically immediately, but he was like, I can't wait to listen to this again and like go back to it, delve into it more. And I think given the fact that these are super personal lyrics, you can kind of go one of two roads as a listener. Either there's something you key into there, like even just one line, or you come at it from the perspective of like, I don't need to relate to this directly. I can just appreciate it for being a window into somebody's thought process or their feelings in a given moment.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a mix of both with their music, where there's moments where I'm like, oh, I totally get that. And then there's other moments where I'm like, I can't relate to that at all, but it all works for me regardless. And this is definitely one of the darkest records, one of the most confessional, and he puts a lot of shit on Front Street, as they say. So without further ado, let's move into what was my favorite song on the album for quite a while, The Hollows.
This goes out to dirty dancing, cursing, back masking, backslidden pastors' kids. And all us earth growth, some planted and some pulled. In Berlin I saw 2 men fuck in a dark corner of a basketball court. Just a slight jingle, a pocket change pulsing. Tourist part, I lost 50 euros to a guy with the walnut shells and the marble. It really pissed me off, so ooh, I thought I'd go back to get my money, but all my homies warned me, oh no, those gypsies probably got knives.
Okay, so I wanted to hit verse 3 there. Kind of my favorite section of the song. That's why I say you got to get to 4, because this is like, if you're fully on board, then you've got all the shades of the album laid out ahead of you. Arguably the darkest it gets. Maybe you feel differently. We'll see. But I did cut it short, but I don't know if you caught this. I didn't really until I was literally reading through lyrics this time. Dose 1 is in the background. Dose One and Yoni have worked on a bunch of stuff together. We'll get into all that on the side projects, etc. Kind of buried in the mix a little bit if you're not listening to it in headphones or on good speakers. But after the final verse, and Yoni does the hook once again, Dose's backing vocals are, even just Joanna Newsom's left hand could beat the pants off your best man.
And all us earth grows, some planted, some blown.
And I had never noticed that line. And I absolutely love that shit. There is another artist that I could expose you to that you would probably be like, what am I listening to?
Probably.
But she is absolutely incredible. Doesn't sound like she's from this planet, but in the best way possible. Like, nobody sounds like her.
Wow.
And she plays the harp, like a giant stand-up harp. She's married to Andy Samberg.
Oh, okay.
You know her.
Yeah, I
you just
you-
don't know
yeah.
that you know her.
No, yeah.
PTA has done a bunch of videos for her. You should definitely go watch those. But yeah, so I love that shout out to Joanna Newsom, which I totally never noticed.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like she's better than most people out there. It's an awesome line. So,
Isn't it funny how that happens though?
what's that?
Like she's this like virtuoso with like what she does as a harp, but she's married to Andy Samberg.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a genius, but still,
Very-
like it's just
odd
it's so
pairing
funny.
from the outside, but obviously they make it work.
Yeah, no, it's adorable.
Totally. Any further thoughts on the Hollows? I don't want to cut you off before we move on. You can just say next track. if
No,
you're-
man. I mean,
I know you got your notes over there.
Yeah, I mean, well, with this one, it was kind of like, you know, this again. I was listening to the first time for lyrics, just haphazardly. The second time I went back through, I paid more attention to like the changes in the music and just where things were going with different instruments. And,
Question.
Yeah.
When he talks about the tourist park
Yeah.
and the walnut shell game, did you not think of Mr. Pastario Vargas in the opening of The Pest, played by the incomparable John Leguizamo? Shout out to that movie.
Yes.
Probably a lot of people of our generation grew up on VHS.
Dude, I have actually
but probably a
found that
lot of
not
people have never
nobody
seen
knows
it.
what that movie is.
Yeah.
I could.
There's a
I could
90s
pull-
nostalgia episode
I
right
could
there.
pull 20 people into this room right now and ask them the same question. They'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
Ari Spears.
Yeah, Freddie
Freddie
Rodriguez,
Rodriguez.
who's going to pop up as a Rodriguez revisited.
It's a little problematic because Jeffrey Jones is the villain in
yeah.
it. It's a little odd to go back to.
and Joe Morton, brother from another mother, like
I
or another
almost
planet.
forgot
Excuse
about
me.
Joe Morton's the shit.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Who's Angela Davis?
okay, yeah, go.
What happened? I don't know. I mentioned that I might be forced to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, and bam, prejudice smears its ugly little head again.
rears its ugly little head.
Just so
Moving right along. Go watch The Pest.
Yes.
But
So Pest and Bellflower
yes,
on the list for
movie
on the docket.
recommendations from When the Sun Sets East.
Yeah.
All right, man. Song of the Sad Assassin. Again, the drums throughout this. It's
that
this
like a
great
music box?
layered, like double drumming almost.
We lifted the body from the water like a gown. You took off your bra to wrap the wound. Though the man was dead and there was no need.
What's that?
Is that like a music box playing in the background, or is it a triangle,
I
or
think
what?
it's. I'm honestly not sure. I'm pretty sure when I've seen it live, Josiah has some sort of like a maraca,
Yeah.
like a shaker, not a maraca.
But
But,
it sounds like it's either hitting a triangle or like,
I really think that's keyboard.
or maybe so.
I'm really not sure. We don't know enough about music.
No, we
Definitely
don't.
not qualified to be talking.
I don't even
about
know how
this
to read.
band.
I don't even know what a note is, or like chords or anything like that. I feel like most people just kind of figure music out, and that's where you get this. Like this is just kind of like, this is what I'm doing. You know, don't really care if you like it, but I'm doing it, and it works.
In a little bit of my research, apparently, and again, it's the internet. I don't know how valid any of this stuff is. apparently this song is about the breakup of Cloud Dead, previous project with Dose One and Odd Nosed Him. I don't know tons of details about it, so I don't really feel comfortable commenting on it, but apparently that's where a lot of the references in the song come from. The body, if you will, is the band itself, being pulled from the water like a gown. So take from that what you will. And then, of course, the ender, the Billy the Kid did what he did and he died, that repeats over and over again. I'll jump to that for you.
Billy the Kid did what he did and he died. Billy the Kid did what he did and he died. Billy the Kid did what he did and he died.
His perspective on maybe the band as a whole, like, it's over now, but, you know, we did what we did, so to speak.
I could see that.
I don't know. But,
if you think Billy the Kid really died and was like shot in the back by Pat Garrett.
So where are you at so far?
I mean, I'm still there, brother.
You're still with me.
Yeah.
All right. We continue the mood shift into Nashville.
Never in the night when the knot grows tighter than fingers can untie, and all the last half-damned rivers have gone dry. Does the cock crow thrice until someone is denied, or the morning comes? You wonder, will you ever get your shit together? What is that? A leather sofa and a feather in an old fur hat, a fake tat lost in a box of Cracker Jacks, practicing your plane wreck face in a first class laugh. That's what the ghost of someone's dad might say.
That's the ghost of what someone's dad might say.
That's what the ghost of someone's dad might say.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is echoed from The Hollows, where you have, again, Dose One in the background with "This is what the ghost of someone's dad says." But I love the narrative and lyrical threads that run through the entirety of the album and stuff that gets like called back to or echoed in songs further down the line. We end very, very dark and moody. It's just about at that point where, you know, on Elephant Eyelash, I talked about those first handful of tracks before you get to Gemini and how that's like a breath of fresh air. It's exactly what you need at that moment. And to me, Fatalist Palmistry, the way it kicks in right here is everything. It's what just totally carries you in to the back half of the album. It's one of the most high energy tracks. It's got a great, just like wide open feel to it, and it's catchy as hell as well.
I think this is the other one I liked on here. Like I said, I don't
gonna
know
say
names.
this would be if I had to guess one of your top three. And you get this little taste right here at the end of Nashville, which I almost forgot about, of Exegesis, which is the closer. You get its theme kind of creeping in, almost as if it's the midpoint of the album.
I sleep on my back 'cause it's good for the spine and coffin rehearsal. I know a psychic who reads her own poems and her findings are personal. She keeps her fist shut tight and she sleeps on her side. Well, maybe she knows something I don't know, but I am still alive and loving, wide-eyed in my time. Not a mummy shrinking in its claws. Your cat clawed out my eyes while I was distracted by your smile. And now my sockets sit like empty catcher's mitts waiting. And you ask me, is there anybody else that I'm dating?
Yeah, so like I said, I feel like a breath of fresh air.
Definitely.
And one of the quote-unquote happiest tracks, and it's been a very dark confessional album thus far. A lot of really intense lyrics and stuff to mull over. But this one kind of gives back to the hopeless romanticism of something like Gemini to me. So, yeah, I love it. That probably your number two,
Yeah,
you saying?
probably my number two,
Okay.
if I had to pick right now.
Alrighty. Got the Fall of Mr. Fifths
But I do
up
like
next.
this one too.
And we'll go brief because Dalwood and Rachel definitely did this one justice. I know it's one of Dalwood's favorites, and I dig it quite a bit myself.
Sounds like I'm in church right now.
Just another Sunday.
Oh, look at that.
Ride on a man-made lake with another lady stranger. If I remain lost and die on a cross, at least I wasn't born in a manger. I can sense somewhere right now I'm being prayed for. Seems like I always arrive on the same shore. From where my sails set, maybe with one less lady than my vessel left with. Is that a threat? Oh, I've stayed scarce this last year, yes. But be assured in unrest, I'm unavoidable like death.
So his flow is definitely on display.
Yeah.
This is one of the most hip hop heavy or influenced tracks on the album, and I figured you'd be on board. So.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it.
Glad.
I mean, any time that you like, I guess you said you introduced this to me as kind of like indie hip hop, maybe indie rock at some point, but it's like anytime I get to something like that where you can just the full extent of like his capabilities lyrically, it's one of those where like, and it's probably one of the reasons why I'm not huge into hip hop and like the actual art flow of like, what is it, 13 bars or something like that, whatever the actual people define the big, because there's like a big thing with hip hop now where like, oh, if you're just gonna like say one word and sing and like not really don't really have a flow and you can't freestyle, like just call yourself something else, you're not really a hip-hop artist or something like that. So anytime that you get these little like gems of like, it's almost kind of like it's like a bag of tricks, like this is one that gets pulled out at little parts throughout the album and you're like, this guy could probably just you seems like you could give him a line about something and he could just give him like 5 minutes, he could come back with something to just like slay somebody. You know what I mean? I feel like this is what I feel like when I hear this. I don't know if that's true.
No, I was gonna say you can respond. I think he might disagree with you, just in terms of what I've heard him discuss on Wandering Wolf, in terms of his writing process and how hard it is sometimes to just like sit down and write. It's more like just pulling disparate elements together that come to him here and there.
But when you hear
and
it
not
put together
like a traditional freestyler, as far as I know. So
I mean, you don't have to be, but it's just.
But he's an extremely creative guy.
But the way that this flows.
Maybe give him like 10 minutes. Maybe not 5.
Minutes. Yeah,
give him 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, knees weak, palms are sweaty, mom's spaghetti. Like that took more than 10 minutes. Obviously.
Yes.
I mean, let's not joke around here.
I was really gonna make an attempt to never bring up Eminem in the course of this cast, but
I didn't say anything about. You brought him up. I didn't say anything about it.
Okay. I can.
That was Bunny Rabbit, dude. That was B-Rabbit. That wasn't. Who are you talking about? I'm talking about 8 Mile.
Okay. What I'm playing right now is the very end of Fall of Mr. Fifths, because the transitions in this album, people, they're flawless. It's part of the whole cohesive feel. The transition right here coming up into Brook and Waxing, which, as of this listen, favorite song on the album.
Feel a lot better now.
Pray hard like a pious pope, but hope for no diamonds. If some divine Simon spoke or came down to find us, caught here in our lab coats, but without a science, would we see light? Oh, I might decide while I'm alive, I'll feel alive. And what's next, I guess I'll know when I got in there.
Thoughts, man? Come on, I'm looking at
I
you.
mean, I don't know.
This one didn't stand out to you?
It didn't stand out, but I can understand, like, if you're going after, like, listening to it before listening to the other segment, I was kind of like, okay, just another song on the album. Like, I mean, it's not bad, it's not good, it's just kind of there. But like understanding what they're talking about with the background, which is why I appreciate that they can have that forethought, because I don't know where I would be able to find this amount of information in the time span that it took to listen to this and talk to you about it. So I can appreciate that, knowing, the background of the album, the illnesses, the personal stuff that's come up, which really sucks. Like, it makes sense. It's kind of almost like an acceptance of, like, you know what, I'm alive. I'm still gonna be happy. I'm not gonna let this shit this shit ain't gonna define me. Like, yeah, it is a part of me, but I'm not gonna be. That's not gonna be. I'm not gonna be the indie hip hop kid with Crohn's, or indie hip hop kid with alopecia, or whatever it is. I'm not letting personal stuff get me to this point where I can't do what I love, kind of thing. I'm just gonna let it be. I'm alive, so I'm just gonna be chill. When I get to the next thing, I'll get to the next thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that not, feel that way, or
Yeah,
you just kind of give me a blank expression like,
I'm
okay.
waiting for you to finish your point.
Yeah, okay.
That's all.
Yeah, okay. Well,
The fuck?
I'm finished. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I love the way it's echoed in By Torpedo or Crohn's, but I love the refrain here. And also just the moment it builds towards in the back half, just that kind of little jam session might be my favorite little musical interlude on the entire album.
Yeah.
That's part of why I love this track so much. But yeah, it's while having still a darker tone that mirrors a lot of the earlier tracks on the album, it has a little bit more lightness or hopefulness and perspective, which you get with like Fatalist Palmistry as well. And yeah, it's one of my favorite sentiments and one of my favorite lyrics from the album. And you hit the nail on the head, brother. I wasn't trying to make you feel shitty. I was just letting you finish, man. I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah, okay. Look like you're gonna mansplain something to me.
Oh god,
like I didn't get it.
No mansplaining. Seriously, if we have been, please totally yell at us about it.
Yeah, because I've really just done this as I don't mean to. If it's come across condescending, it's just
Gavin has a gun to his head right now.
Yeah,
and I'm holding it.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, that's the only way to physically get him on mic.
I can't do any more other podcasts if I don't do this one. I had like a finite number of ones that I was allowed to be on, and then it was like, if you don't do this, then you can't be a part of this anymore. To which I said, okay, fine. Where do I find these things? And then that's when okay. So that's actually what happened when they write the biography.
It's always podcast gold when you have one completely unwilling participant. Sky for Shooing Horses Under, again, well covered on Untethered Layers.
But I like this intro.
Very nice build.
Yes.
And of course, the most reflective of the album cover, which, have you looked at all of the album covers? That's a good question.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite just based purely on visual, or one you're most excited to get to that we haven't gotten to?
What's the one for Eskimo Snow?
That would be the mummy with a bouquet of flowers.
That one.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
All right. I think you're...
A new mummy with... It's kind of simple. Mummy with flowers, but yeah.
I think you're going to dig Eskimo Snow. 28 got a brief shout out on Untethered Layers, so maybe we should give Gavin another listen, see if he had any thoughts on this one.
28. Tell me, are you single? Yet my heart's as big as Texas. More than just a lingual threat to get this pest to let live. At best, he'll need a sedative and strap him to a steady bed. At worst, he's already dead. The first time folks have heard this. A song of these, the bone dry jokes and the grown kid spokesman's notebooks. Lil poem goes slow and hollow, like an empty rowboat looks. Left to float alone, it follows. Where any air goes, it's took.
Kind of like a little interlude or freestyle, if you will, is the vibe of it to me.
Yeah.
But definitely deserving of a place on the album, not just like a bridge track. So I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that one, or we can keep
Again,
on rolling.
what's going on in the back, like the music.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see this album performed live. I've been watching YouTube videos incessantly because December is just too far away, man. It's too far away. And now we're on to what, as of this moment, is probably my second favorite on the album, Simeon's Dilemma.
Stalker's my whole style, and if I get caught, I'll deny.
And I'm going to go ahead and take you about midway through.
Are you a female young messiah for stowaways and dugouts? And are you what church folk mean by the good news, pulling plastic bags off heads? Or are you giving me a dirty look in the rear view, clicking the button on your U-Haul pen? Don't pretend you didn't see me coming round the bend on my fixie with the chopped horns turned in, trailing behind your biodiesel Benz. Stalker's my whole style, and if I get caught, I'll deny.
Just my favorite swell on the entire album.
Yeah.
The build to that finale is absolutely incredible.
Just the amount of layering of like different things rolling in. It just feels like they got the piano in the back, and then it's swelling and building up, and the lyrics all put together.
Yeah, I need to find out what happened to it, but there was a making of documentary chronicling the process of Mumps, etc., if I'm not mistaken. And it was a Kickstarter project for them to finish it. I don't know whatever happened to it, but I would love to see a behind the scenes on any of these albums.
Oh,
but
yeah.
just like how much goes into the layering and mixing and like using like old family recordings and stuff like that, and just how everything seems to fit just absolutely perfectly. Like it doesn't feel like super controlled, but it doesn't feel shaggy at the same time.
No, it doesn't
you know
feel
what I
just
mean?
like a jam
It
band.
doesn't
It feels
feel
like there's some
it
kind of-
doesn't feel thrown together in any way, but it's still loose. It's not, it still has this wide open quality,
Yeah.
especially like at the end of Simeon's Dilemma, where it just like starts driving towards the end. It's so, oh god, I love that one. One of my favorite driving tunes from this record.
Definitely.
And we're straight into By Torpedo or Crohn's.
Sleeping late, I hear the sad horns of labor trucks sigh. My neighbor walks by, high heels click dry. Like half a proud horse down brook, I hear somebody's babbling. I mistook for a cavalry, whispering victory to the sparks in their kindling. But all their greenwood's wet and unmet as of yet by the gases of flame pressing against the pending physics of my passed down last name. Living in the tear between two spaces, condemned in one of the many places you're not, I am. Hiding from my friends in the bathroom at Thrift Town to write this tune down.
Alright, sorry for the interruption. You may be hearing some... It's not the rain coming down in late July. I guess it's mid-July?
I don't know, dude. It's not the 10th yet, so... and there's,
Okay, the rain's coming down in early July here in Charleston, South Carolina. So sorry for the thunderstorm going on in the background. Hopefully it doesn't interfere with the rest of the cast. But let's get back to it. Also kind of a standout on the album for most people. Where does this sit for you?
I mean, if I'm going to put it, I would probably say, I don't know if you want to say standout, because I mean, I feel like it kind of flows just as the same as most of the stuff with the cohesion of the album. But I could definitely say it's like in my top 5 of this one.
Definitely one of the most like outright confessional and easiest to follow along with. Not a lot of like coded messaging in there at all. This also includes one of my personal favorite drops. My brother said that.
I was going to say, that's where this one comes in, right?
Yes, it is. Only those evil live to see their own likeness in stone, Gavin. And now you say my brother said that.
My brother said that.
Yeah, there you go. That was pretty solid.
Good heavens, background radiation and the black art's awaiting. Not the same since I switched my hair apart and started shaving. Got hacks, my hidden hair gone corners. Oh, I'll never be a joiner, lifelong local forerunner. Raw lung, homegrown, faking, co-ed, naked choir. Second tenor, highest riser, blessed, clever compromiser. I'll be proudly mouthing watermelon every song. I put the phone to my ear, but alls I hear's a dial tone. Will they map my skull and wrap my bones when my wig is gone? I'll go unknown by torpedo or crones. Only those evil live to see their own likeness in stone. My brother said that.
So in a lot of ways, this is the perfect closer.
Yeah.
But there's one more song.
Yeah.
Exegesis. Or do you want to attempt a different pronunciation?
No, I'm going to stick with that because I've already heard how, like,
it sounds good to me, exegesis.
Yeah. And the build up to this.
As much as I love it, I kind of almost wish it wasn't there because it once again has to leave us on the note of death.
Yeah.
Of suicide.
No stack of yoga mats or foam core cushion pads to lessen the pressure of the foam core choke in my neck.
Which feels appropriate for the album, of course.
Yeah.
Again, dark, confessional, honest, raw, etc. All those adjectives. And it is very cyclical, as Rachel and Dal would mention, where you could just like flow right into the start of the album again if you wanted to. But other than the fact that it's titled Exegesis, I feel like it could have almost been like dead in the center of the album as well, as a bridge track. So while
like
I love the placement of everything on here, and there's nothing I would shift nowhere near as much as I'm like, I think Elephant Eyelash could be played with a little bit. Everything's in its right place here, and I have no problem with going out on that note, but it is kind of like right, got it right in there right at the end.
Yep.
Right at the end. But, so you made it through Alopecia, brother.
Yeah.
Number 1 on the list so far.
Yeah.
How many sunsets are you giving this one?
Oh, dude, I'm giving this one just straight up 5 out of 5. It's probably, I've listened to a bunch of new stuff in the past like week or two since we recorded the last one. And of it's in my top 3 of like new stuff I've been getting into. And not that I was held at gunpoint to do so, not that it was something that was requested of me at the behest of my brother to do this podcast, but if I picked this up in a store somewhere and just bought it, because why not? I would. It's one that I'd be like, yeah, whoever. Why have I not heard this? What else can I get it from?
You'd be telling people about it.
Yeah, I'd be singing it from the rooftops in the mountains on high or whatever you want to call it. Go tell it on the mountain or whatever it is.
Yes.
So
go tell it on the mountain, Gavin.
Yeah. So, I'm interested to see where it's going to go next because we talked about like the first one being kind of more of like a breakup album or like there's a lot of
that on here as well.
Yeah.
And I'll address that a little bit more in just a moment. But continue.
But I'm definitely interested to see where the next one takes us in terms of just like how much personal like insight we get, as well as like kind of where the progression of music itself goes. Because again, you could almost say like this is and I'm going to ask you this, and I don't want you to tell me too much because I don't want you to spoil it. Would you say that the next 2 albums are in the same vein as this because how do I put this? So where does Elephant Eyelash stand to everything after it? Is it a shot in the dark kind of on its own, or is it like just, you know, an amalgamation up until then, and then like every album an improvement upon the last but from a different standpoint? Because I almost kind of feel like you could say this. So how do I put this? We don't like to talk about these people. I'm only gonna say it once, okay? So the BN guys, I feel like that second album from them kind of lets you know where you're gonna go from then on. You're not going back to the emo trend you're in. You're gonna be in this new thing where we're doing new stuff every album, and that's what I'm getting at here. Is this album more personal and more of an insight into what this band really wants to do? So it's using the dope transitions and the great music and the lyrics to get you accustomed to, like, okay, you heard Elephant Eyelash, you've heard these tracks, the first two, like you said, you get to the third one, if you're in. Are we going to be on that ride for the next 3 albums, or is there going to be changes kind of throughout them that lets you say, okay, no, this wasn't really a transition album to getting to where they want to be. It was just a point in time kind of thing. That's what I'm interested in trying to figure out. I mean, I know I have to listen to them, but can you give me any insight going forward? That's my question.
My brother said that.
Sure. This is personal opinion, of course.
Yeah.
I feel like Eskimo Snow, from most fans' perspective and what I've gathered, seems to kind of live in the shadow of Alopecia and gets a little bit forgotten and or underrated because it was released very shortly afterwards, the next year. And in a lot of ways, I think it's kind of, it's Alopecia's twin, but very, very different at the same time. Maybe like brothers that were born like 2.5 years apart.
Yeah,
maybe
or
something like that.
Or
But-
like different mothers, same father kind of thing.
Sure. But yeah, it is a progression in some ways, and you may also see it as a bit of a regression to more of the style of Elephant Eyelash, but with maybe the higher production standards and layered elements of Alopecia, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
And I honestly feel like Eskimo Snow and Mumps actually have a lot more in common, even though they're recorded quite a bit apart. And then I feel like Mohlin is really in a different territory altogether, and I kind of want to reserve my thoughts for that one when we get to it. But in some ways, it feels like it is the new quintessential Y album. In other ways, it feels like it is like this new thing, but also kind of an ending at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how you feel about it. I will hold my thoughts till then. But yes, I don't want to scare you off of Eskimo Snow because it has, I would say, 5 or 6 tracks that would be in contention for like my favorite Y, top 10, top 20, whatever we want to limit it to. And I don't know if you're going to latch on lyrically as much, which I know you haven't necessarily done so far. It's been more the music side of things, the sound of things. But I feel like there's a lot of that there to carry you through, even if you don't get into the lyrics as much on this one, because it's not delivered in the same, hip-hop flow for the most part. In fact, that kind of first chunk of Simeon's Dilemma, where you hear Yoni singing in a tone that you really haven't heard much of up to this point, I feel like you get a lot more in that vein when we get to Eskimo Snow. But we'll talk about it all next week.
Okay.
One last thing I do want to mention, in an effort to not mansplain any further, keep it too male-centric, there's a little record that you should be aware of. This would be like bonus homework, if you will, Gavin.
Okay.
I'm going to play you a track right now, and I think I'll maybe throw this on towards the end as a bonus for people after we wrap. But I'm going to play this for you in the room. We'll cut it down. We'll see how it goes. This, in many ways, is the female side of Y.
Okay.
This is Divorcee, okay? This album is produced by Yoni, and this is his ex, Anna, who a lot of the songs on the first 2 albums, a lot of the songs throughout the whole body of work, as far as I understand it, are about. But I wanted to bring this one up particularly as it relates to alopecia. So give this a listen.
You're out touring, it's 9 in
seeing and what place you're leaving, and I cringe at the thought of your plans. Questions I hold tight as a girlfriend's right, like the last coins I have to my name. Now I'm banking on why you didn't call me last night. Was it that girl from the Foursquare game? 'Cause I've got no idea what you're doing out there, and I can only imagine the thoughts of a man. I left you 3 messages at 4 a.m. Should I believe it when you tell me you slept in the van?
This is worse than Lemonade, man.
Huh?
This is worse than Lemonade.
Worse than Lemonade.
Yeah. Like, ooh, that's rough.
Again, produced by him.
I know, but-
After they were already broken
Yeah,
up.
I know,
like,
but it's
no bad vibes there.
I
as
know
far
it's
as I
not
can
bad
tell.
vibes. It's just
very much his muse, and he admits as much. And she's been on his podcast.
Yeah.
You know, it's all good.
I know
I
that,
just
but
thought it
it's
would
just-
be worth giving you that perspective because it's like you can go listen to the other side of this because it is very internalized, and from Yoni's perspective, I love that like you also have this other window into a lot of the same events. And this was recorded, it was released in 2015 if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know when they recorded, so several years after, 2014. So released several years after Alopecia,
Yeah.
but revisiting a lot of those same themes. There's bits of Alopecia in this album. You'll hear a little bit of Good Friday at the end of this one. But yeah, I definitely would recommend checking it out. It's basically like it's a 6-track EP. So you can check that out on Spotify, iTunes, buy it on Amazon. Yeah.
yeah.
So, what? Oh God, that storm is. Yes.
And the lightning strikes.
Yeah, let's lose all of our listeners. We do have a country music episode.
And that
if
shit
anybody
was
wants to
dope.
go check
We
that
were
out.
pandering
I think
our
a few
asses
people have
off.
gone back and checked it out.
Yeah, we were
That is, of
pandering-
course, Gavin's show, What I Learned From, which we'll get back to.
That was
at,
Gavin's
at
show.
some point.
We don't do that anymore.
Oh, it's over?
No,
Calling the
I
courts?
can't record a new one until I get done
Calling
with these, apparently. That was the rules.
I mean, yeah, we got to get these up, man.
Yeah, I know.
People are clamoring for them.
Yeah.
Have you seen the numbers?
Yeah.
Thank you once again to everybody who has checked out all the episodes thus
But
far.
what if they're going to leave because there's no mansplaining in this one?
You want to go ahead and mansplain something right now?
Yeah.
Tell us how bailouts work.
Bailouts?
I don't
Okay.
know why that's
So
what,
what you got to understand is the FDIC is funded and covered by the government. The NCUA, which is a organization that I work with, we don't have any kind of funding. So what every credit union does is they pay into a fund every year so that if something happens, they can be bailed out by their own selves. See, credit unions, they pull people's up by their own bootstraps, whereas the big banks and the FDIC, they get cushy fat cat bailouts by the bleeding heart red, white, and blue Republicans and Democrats of this great here nation here. Yeah, no.
You just got to end it with, but don't worry your pretty little head over it, lady.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
But it's okay, darling. You don't need to worry your pretty little head with that kind of nonsense.
That's
Just
how you definitely put the nail in the coffin of mansplaining.
It's like
something.
that one letter that like Disney wrote back to the little girl who wanted to be an animator, and he was like, "Dear so and so, did this and this, but only men are animators.
Only boys are allowed to
Only
draw pictures."
young girls should stick with being secretaries or teachers or whatever." It's like
That's Gavin doing his Walt Disney, for the record.
No,
That
that's
is
not what. No, it's like that's not what he. It's not what he's like. That's not my Walt Disney impression. I don't have a Walt Disney impression.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember how
Well, Disney was
sounds.
a huge anti-Semite, so
Yeah.
on this Why podcast, we should definitely be saying, fuck Walt Disney.
Yeah, but not really, because like Disney's the biggest thing in the world these days.
But it's really not about Walt at this point.
No, it isn't.
Might
I mean,
as well be King Kevin Feige, as far as everybody's concerned.
Speaking of that, Business Wars, Marvel versus DC, totally worth checking out. If you
Okay.
ever listen to that, that's a dope new podcast I've been listening to.
Sweet. So that was our thoughts on alopecia. Gavin's firmly sold for the moment.
Yeah, no, I dig it. I'm glad.
Well, We'll see how he digests.
I'm glad I'm
Eskimo
on this
Snow.
journey.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Glad you don't feel like you have a gun to your head anymore.
No.
So, until next week, when we'll be discussing Eskimo Snow, I have been Noah.
And I have been Gavin.
And we've been the Blanchard Brothers. And we'll see you when the sun sets east.
I'll see you when the sun sets east. Don't forget me.
Oh, fuck.
Hopefully this rain lets up and we can see if the sun's going to set east anytime soon.
Sure.
Nope, not good.
Okay.
Terrible. My bad.
All right. Until next week, when we'll be discussing Eskimo Snow. God damn it.
Eskimo Snow!
Chill.
Sorry.
Okay. Alrighty, so until next week, when we'll be discussing Eskimo Snow, I have been Noah.
And I have been That's right, I've been Gavin.
Fuck.